As the wheel of life turns, we learn the essence of our life. This essence is the highest level of our being. In the Buddhist tradition, the wheel of life represents a path that may lead us hopefully to our own personal Shangri-La. As in the mystical legends, where Shangri-La is a paradise, that remote imaginary place where life approaches perfection, nirvana. The perfect highway of life has taken me to the remote area of Tibet many times. It is not a place of the imagination, but a very real land. I remember Germany as a young child after World War II. We were living in ruins, suffering from starvation. Barely coming out of this, I heard for the first time of Tibet and the Dalai Lama and the fate this country had to endure. From a little newspaper article my grandmother read to me, I learned of the suffering of thousands of innocent people and that Mao Zedong's army had seized Tibet. The year was 1959. It was to be 32 years later that I started to fulfill my vow to help Tibet and the Dalai Lama. This video is about my experience of Tibet, the place that answered the questions from deep within. Tibet is a land of mystical knowledge, a place where one's heart can be opened to the truth of life if one gives oneself with devotion. Tibet, called the roof of the world, is the highest plateau on a geographical level. It is in the Himalayan mountain range. For many, Tibetan Buddhism is the supreme level of mind attainment and development, the space where the deities and gods reside, making it possible for the human realms to become one. To honor their spiritual traditions, each Tibetan family offers one of its children to a monastery. They do not see this as a sacrifice, but instead as a part of obtaining enlightenment. Since I was a young girl in Germany, I had wanted to go to Tibet. I was drawn to the energy of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He is the 14th incarnation of the deity Chenrezig, the god of compassion. His politics and religion are based on showing kindness to all beings. It was particularly meaningful to me to finally go to Tibet 42 years after the Chinese invasion in 1949, when 6,000 monasteries were destroyed and 1 million people were killed. I was struck by the similarity of the imperialistic European history to China's history, and what the royalties were responsible for in the lands they conquered. The overpowering illegal action that China used to seize Tibet in 1949 is not in accordance with the world protective law established by The Hague. It is also in violation with the human rights policies as presented by the United Nations. Today, many of these countries are calling for the return of Tibet to its people. It is also ironic that Tibet was seized by a country of great spiritual tradition and knowledge. But in the last decades, China has cut its spiritual roots to pursue political and economic ambitions. My most recent trip to Tibet was a journey of both joy and sadness. Throughout my trip, I saw the whole country spoiled by this destructive energy. The havoc is everywhere in the country. There are Chinese nuclear power stations, Chinese military bases, prostitution, industrial waste, all side by side at the most important Tibetan spiritual locations. Shooting this video meant risking losing my camera and being deported. It is obvious that the Tibetans' Buddhist culture, sacred places, and daily lives have been ruined by the exploitative policies of the Chinese government. It is now easier to get permission to go to Tibet. But the trip across the country can be very, very difficult. The Chinese have improved sanitation in some areas, such as in hotels and food. However, I think their sanitation standards are not adequate yet. I was in Tibet for 1 month with a Chinese driver and a Tibetan guide. It was an unusual blending of 3 cultures, Tibetan, Chinese and Western. But there were great frustrations in our coming together. The tension and constant bickering between the driver and the guide were very imposing for me, a Westerner who needed both of them to make my journey through Tibet. Neither of them wanted to be there. It was just a way for them to support their livelihood. Whenever the 2 men argued, I tried to avoid all talk of politics and to stay focused on my purpose for coming to Tibet. I wanted to observe the simple devotion of Tibetans as I tried to remain connected to their traditions in a homeland now run by a government hostile to them. I was inspired in my own spiritual quest, which enabled me to not be humiliated and intimidated by the Chinese system. After traveling through barren desert country from the center of Tibet to the southeast, I came upon beautiful green fields and meadows in numerous valleys. Those beauties of nature refueled my energy. I visited with the nomads in order to learn about their traditions. At first, they distrusted me, but in time they could see I was sincere and truly interested in them. The nomads showed me the ancient food preparations, from the goat and yak. On a damp and rainy day, I enjoyed the warmth and smoothness of a fatty, salty yak butter tea, which I thought I would never adjust to. My eyes are running. Even their hard chura cheese tasted good on that day.
공구지약 죽음도가 누구예요? 공구 죽음도가 누구예요? 나사.
Some business mother. Carga. Mother carga que você tudo
아까 그런데 저다 그 비주 그 시장 더도 있는 얘들네 찍찍 내가 막 무슨 내게 저거 내게 다 다시. 이때네
야가는 가리 조금 연우. 다른 가면 안 되고 조금 더 해. 지금 야가
As my visit came to an end in a nomad tent, I bargained for a yak skin bag that used to belong to their grandfather. It was covered with unusual shells. Till today, the authentic stench of the bag brings a refreshing memory of the Tibetan nomads.
There, my present from Tibet.
Kongpo, in the southeast of Tibet, is the home of one of the early kings of Tibet, and it is the seat of the oldest Buddhist tradition, the Bonpo. Since I was one of the first Westerners to travel to Kongpo, it was difficult to videotape the people's daily life issues. They are not yet used to outsiders taking pictures, and they are rightfully suspicious. But the religious significance of the area is so powerful that my curiosity became the guiding energy, despite all obstacles. There was an incredible, wondrous contrast that took place on the 2-day journey from Lhasa, the capital in the south of Tibet, to Kongpo. Seeing the lush, green, vibrant mountains, the crystal clear waterfalls and glacier lakes had a rejuvenating effect on my being. Deep within the woods and inside the mountains were hermitages developed by meditation masters. They have been there for centuries. The lake Draksum Lato lies between the peaks of 2 mountain chains and 2 rivers. This lake is known to be the sole place of King Geza of Ling of the 7th century. It is here in this natural environment that the king's life spirit resides. One of the oldest shrines here was founded by the great Nyingma Lama Sangye Lingpa in the 14th century. It was visited by Guru Rinpoche. It is another place of prayer, still frequently visited by devotees. The caretaker of the monastery invited us to a typical Tibetan lunch. Very good. I was introduced to the ritual of making butter tea and how to eat sampa, a dough made from barley flour with yak meat, which keeps you warm even on the coldest day. Right?
Yeah.
It is made from barley, butter and milk, or what?
Yeah, butter tea and butter.
Butter tea.
Butter tea, also butter.
Uh-huh.
This is very delicious. Vegetarians.
Uh-huh. Keeps you warm too, doesn't it?
Yeah, more strong.
Uh-huh.
Vegetarian food.
Okay, now you have the whole.
Make around.
Uh-huh.
Make this here.
Mm-hmm.
Here like this.
Like a little spoon.
Yeah, yeah. Then we take it. Yeah.
Ah, in the
Yeah.
very
Like
hot.
this.
Uh-huh. Before Buddhism came to the region, the people here practiced the ancient tradition of poisoning people and then eating them. They believed by doing this, they would get the good karma from the person, that is, their long life, health and wealth. In this region there is another auspicious place with very special blessings. A rock in the shape of a vagina is believed to hold powers of fertility. Women pilgrim to this place, putting their hands into this rock while praying for a healthy pregnancy. You may find a piece of their clothing left behind for special blessings. On the way to the capital of Kongpo, Ningtri, we passed many holy places, monasteries, waterfalls, road shrines and Buddha statues. The skylines of the new growing towns with satellites and industrial pollution makes us more aware of the rapid changes everywhere. In Ningtri I felt like I was in a gold rush town. Most of the people here are Chinese and were brought in to search for gold or to work in the coal mines. Each restaurant has a television showing either an Indian love story or a Chinese action film. Everyone drops in to relax. There are no signs of Tibetan culture in this newly built town. Our trip out of Ningtri to Gyansi took us through farmland, where the Chinese have destroyed the centuries-old Tibetan layout of the fields. This makes farming more difficult, and it produces fewer crops. The wind and water can more quickly erode the earth. The farmers must also use old equipment. Survival is almost impossible now that they have been forced to abandon their ancient methods, and they are requested to pay 2/3 of their income to the government. I seldom saw a traditional village compared to 7 years ago. The traditional style of building a farm village is almost extinct. At the end of a long travel day, we passed a remote village where one could get a glimpse of the old Tibet. The reality remains, these mountain people are living in slavery under a tyrannical power. As we continued along a rugged and dangerous road, a truck that was ahead of us began to fall over the edge. People tumbled down the side of the mountain. When the police saw me filming, they demanded that I stop. I was afraid they might take my camera away. Because the roads were so treacherous, our car was constantly breaking down. The driver assigned to me, who only knew how to drive military trucks, seemed to break down himself from the effect of the constant flats of our badly equipped car. During one of those times, I went to wait in a nearby monastery, raging with anger in the freezing cold rain while repairs were being made. There I was introduced to a dying abbot. I offered him homeopathic remedies to make his passage into death easier. In appreciation, the monks showed me through the monastery and their simple living quarters. They allowed me to see the rarely seen protector room, the secret room devoted to the deity that protects the monastery. This auspicious opportunity made me feel grateful for the breakdown of our car. I was filled with great faith from the unexpected openness and welcome I had just received. When we entered the magnificent Valley of the Kings, southeast of Lhasa, and passed through a village burnt down during the Cultural Revolution, we saw the destruction of Tibetan tradition. I then realized the importance of the remaining monasteries. They offer the only refuge for the people of the region. We arrived at Drepung Monastery, 30 miles west of Lhasa.
Hello. Hello, Sylvia. Hello.
It was built in the 15th century for the Gelugpa order. It is the grand monument to Buddhism. Inside are the tombs of 3 former Dalai Lamas. Hello. Once one of the largest monastic institutions in the world, housing over 10,000 monks, and its university one of the most renowned libraries of Tantric philosophy, it is now rebuilt with only 500 monks. We were told at the monastery that 200 monks had recently been tortured and killed. It filled me with disgust for the Chinese government and their methods.
Yes.
29 years in Drepung. And before?
24 years. He's in prison.
24 years in prison. Oh, difficult, huh?
One must realize that it is not just the monks who are targeted for punishment. It is widely known that if a Tibetan is caught with a photograph of the Dalai Lama, he or she will be executed. The monks' only form of support comes from donations to the monastery, since religion is not recognized by this government. As Mao Zedong said, religion is poison. Their living quarters seem as simple as a few hundred years ago, bordering on poverty.
Das haben wir jetzt auch. Thank you.
Only 10 minutes from this monastery is Nechung Monastery. It is known as the seat of the state oracle. The Nechung oracle is famed for accuracy in predictions of the present and future for the welfare of all beings. The oracle is a deity that speaks through a human vessel. This person is chosen and trained for this prophetic function. When receiving information, the person first enters a trance-like state and then becomes entered by the divinity of Dorji Dragten, the famed indestructible one. For centuries, the state oracle has given advice to the Dalai Lama and to all schools of Buddhism. In fact, the government rarely undertook a course of action before consulting the oracle. The current human vessel for the state oracle lives in exile in a newly built monastery in Dharamsala, India, next to the residence of the Dalai Lama. In place of the living state oracle, Nechung houses an ornate oracle statue. People come here to pay their respects. The monastery once housed 600 monks, and now there are only 100. But still there is hope that one day the Dalai Lama and the oracle will be able to return to Tibet. On my bus ride into Lhasa, the passengers composed a freedom song and sang it especially for me. You see statues of the oracle in caves and shrines throughout Lhasa. The reverence of the Tibetans for the tradition of the oracle and for all of its religious traditions is why some believe Tibetans are the most spiritual people in the world. I share this belief. Very nice. This is to remove all obstacles, right? Finally, we reached the center of the holy city of Lhasa. In the middle of this sacred city is a temple called Jokang. Day and night, Tibetans circle the Jokang, showing their devotion to the Buddha. Within the inner circle of the old city of Lhasa is the famous street Barkor.
So it's okay, no?
There is an ancient market there surrounding the monastery and temple that offers a mixture of traditional culture and modern recreation. One can buy religious articles for worship and clothes are also for sale. This is the spiritual center of Tibet. Old traditional houses close to the monastery are in danger of being destroyed for reasons of sanitation. This is yet another reminder of Tibetan culture that the Chinese want to demolish. But international architectural groups are working to save these structures. The monastery these houses encircle was built in the 7th century by King Songtsen Gampo.
You are a monk, right?
Yeah, he want to become monk, but now he study, learning the Buddhism,
Oh,
just waiting.
how nice. You like it? You love it?
Yeah,
How sweet. You have a very good face. You become a good monk.
yeah.
Oh, yes. It was nicer before.
One of the most beautiful views of the Potala, the former residence and monastery of the Dalai Lama, his rightful home, can be seen from the roof of the Jokang. Now, the Jokang is commercialized for picture taking of tourists in Tibetan dress. This is very popular with Chinese and Western tourists, which makes it quite pathetic, revealing the ignorance of any form of spiritual life. In front of the monastery, in the shadow of the Potala, people do their prostrations, a spiritual practice of devotion. These prostrations have a great physical and emotional healing effect.
Okay.
Oh,
하려고 싫으니까 싫어.
ah, very pretty. Very nice day.
Not too far from Ryokang is a new and well-organized Tibetan medical center, the Chakpori Institute.
No English?
This center harmonizes herbal medicines with massage and acupuncture therapy. Fortunately for me, a homeopath, when I arrived at the institute, I was introduced to the doctors and founders. The comparison of homeopathy and Tibetan medicine was an inspirational exchange between the thoughts of the East and the West. The doctor in charge gave me a personal introduction to the philosophy of their medicine.
Chinese and Tibetan acupuncture is very different. So Tibetan acupuncture, usually just use one point, center of the head. This is a golden needle, So here, this is steel or iron needle.
Front.
Yes. This is steel or iron needle, So many points can be used even backside on the body. So traditional Tibetan acupuncture, only one point, you see, center of the head. So golden needle, 1 point.
So one needle stimulates the whole organism.
Yeah, yes.
And you have to take a more precise diagnosis
Yes.
for Tibetan
Yeah.
acupuncture.
Try acupuncture.
Every other day.
Yeah, every other day, yes. And also try herbal medicine.
Is also paralysis?
Yes, paralysis.
Ah.
The hospital is for people who need acute or long-term care. The few times I was there, the hospital was always filled with patients, which is a good sign this form of medicine is still respected and in use. In Tibetan medicine, each doctor is able to treat all ailments of the patient with the various forms of diagnosis, with individually composed medicines, with acupuncture and massage, as compared to Western medicine, where a specialist for each individual ailment is used. A tanka is a scroll, a painting done on treated fabric with religious motifs, painted by specially trained and educated artists.
Who is this now in this picture?
Middle one?
Yeah.
He's the famous doctor in 11th century.
Ah.
So his name called Yuto.
Within the institute is a museum with old tankas, and ancient healing instruments are on display. I saw tankas that were for healing and astrology. The Tibetans believe the astrological timing of medicine is important in the curing of any disease.
That's the Chakpori medical temple,
Yes.
a side of one side.
That's the
that
medicine.
temple. Now it was destroyed, radio, TV tower.
Tibetan medicine is over 2,000 years old and has proven to be very successful, even in the West.
Yoga movements, especially for the back. Very, very good.
It is based on the mind-body harmony. Tibetan doctors believe that getting sick and getting well come from the same place, from your thoughts and emotions. With the right herbs, minerals and roots, they believe you can balance the wind and water aspects of patients to heal them.
Take herbal medicine.
Uh-huh.
The last branch here we call external treatment.
One of the former directors, a man who had been in prison for 20 years after the Chinese invasion, today gives tours of the institute. From the top of the institute, one sees the Jokang monastery. I stood there watching the street life below. I watched people moving through their daily lives amid the ancient buildings of Lhasa, buildings that may soon be destroyed.
Okay.
On my way to a tea break, I passed through the center of the town where I saw a monument built by the Chinese, celebrating their 40th anniversary of their takeover of Tibet. It is a chertan, the Tibetan symbol of the three spheres of the cosmos: the base, the center, and the spire. It houses relics of saints. Devotees of the Buddha's teachings circumambulate all chertans out of respect to receive blessings from the Buddhas. One could say it is like a spiritual antenna. Nearby, a monk preserves the tradition of carving the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum into stone, to be left near sacred places. But this Chinese-built chertan, in his view, is only concrete, without any spiritual meaning. Ironically, the only things that are going around this chertan are cars, bikes, and military trucks. At last, I stopped into a typical Tibetan tea house, to relax myself finally with a cup of butter tea. It was like so many tea houses around the world where the young Tibetans come together to visit, have a chat, and read their mail. It was a nice, harmonious feeling. In this place I did not see any Chinese. The most famous historical landmark is the Potala in Lhasa. Built in the 16th century, one of the architectural wonders of the world, the Dalai Lama's palace has been transformed into a museum for tourists by the government. A Chinese gate and two lions make the entrance to the ticket office. The entrance is watched over by Chinese guards. Inside, all reminders of its former resident, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, have been removed, and monastic functions are limited. Even the Kora, the holy walkway around the Potala, is disrupted by the military compounds and nightclubs. All Tibetan government buildings have been erased. Prostitution flourishes there now, supported by soldiers and tourists. Some Tibetans still continue walking in a clockwise motion around the Potala, despite the changes to the area. The old pottery market outside the Potala still exists, and Tibetans still come to a local park nearby to play dice and walk around the Potala. There are now many Chinese foods being introduced in the markets, enjoyed by the Tibetans who welcome a change and improvement in their diet, though they can hardly afford to pay for it. It is clearly a time of adjustment for everyone in Lhasa. In the center of Lhasa, I discovered the original Meru printing press, tucked away between the ruins of the old monastery and the newly reconstructed one. The Meru Nyingma monastery, dating back to the 7th century, was the exact location where the Tibetan script was finalized by the minister of King Songtsen Gyampo. Meru Nyingma is consecrated to the guardian deities of the Buddhist law. It was a reassuring moment as I watched the monks continue their centuries-old work of printing religious text. As a ritual of religious discipline, the printers repeat the mantras, also to help to keep their work in time. In the ruins of the original monastery, the space is used for the drying and organizing of the freshly printed Buddhist text. Throughout Lhasa, there are many small monasteries and nunneries, some in ruins. Also the ruins of the former Chakpori Medical Institute, slowly being rebuilt after 50 years of China's takeover. Do you speak English? Yeah? Good shot. Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, good.
Yeah.
Very good. There. Today you're both movie stars. The region of Tibet is now 2/3 Chinese and only 1/3 Tibetan. Tibetans go there throughout the day to reconnect with their heritage. But the contradiction of the modern age brought in by the Chinese is everywhere. For the young Tibetans, with little memory of the old ways, the traditions of the Chinese are becoming more familiar. Their own heritage is almost foreign to them. Tibetans are connected by the use of their mantras. In this nunnery is a statue of the Leonardo da Vinci of the East, Tangton Gyalpo. He was a bridge builder in the 14th century, creator of theatre and music. Tibetans look at him as an inspiration to visualizing the new Tibet. It's very nice. As the Dalai Lama says, political systems may change. The human heart always remains the same. The longing for happiness, the striving for freedom, those are the real reasons for development, for progress, no matter if it's on the material or spiritual realm. I pray for the return of Tibet to the Tibetans. Whenever I begin to feel that this will not happen, I remember the Dalai Lama. Since his exile, he has maintained a sense of humor. I believe it is this humor, determination and great wisdom that has enabled him to bring together the East and the West to support his work. Moreover, it is his unwavering faith that keeps the West interested in his struggle to return himself and his people to their homeland. till Tibet has turned full circle.